And there is John Whittle on a beautiful spring morning in the Midlands. Hey, bud.
Beautiful is right. Beautiful is absolutely right. It's been a beautiful weekend.
Yeah,
Nice to sit out on the back porch and watch a little Masters.
that's right, man. I actually I took our little coach pitch team to watch Holbrook's team play yesterday, and I got the before I came home to watch the rest of the Masters. It's not like I didn't see it, but I was sitting there talking to your boy Brady Thomas, and we just started scattering golf dates left and right. I mean, I was like, dude, it's like 68 degrees. There's not a drop of humidity in the air. There's no bugs. This is perfect. Oh man, we need to play golf. Before you know, we got like 6 different dates on it. So I forgot to tell my wife that my summer's kind of full with golf with Brady Thomas. So thanks to the weather for getting my schedule organized
There we go.
over the next couple of months. John, as long as I've been around, and probably as long as you've been around, I've never seen anything like we saw this weekend. All of it. I mean, everybody's going to focus on the ninth inning. That's fine. That you can do that. That pretty much sums it up. But I'm talking about from game 1 on Thursday till game 3 on Saturday. I made a statement, and I'm going to stand by this because I said it. I think there's an incredible disconnect between this group of players and the leadership in the program, John. I'm not asking you necessarily whether you agree or disagree with that statement, but I am asking you now that we're halfway through the SEC season and we've seen all of these moments where they've had a chance to do things and they haven't done any of them. I am asking you to summarize this program halfway through or a little over halfway through year 1 under first-year coach Paul Mainieri.
Oh, I mean, I agree with you, and I think that's a pretty sturdy limb you're sliding out there on, Jamie. When you say there's a disconnect between the players and coaches, I mean, half the time that Mainieri speaks after a game, he's throwing players under the bus. Um, I just I don't get that. I mean, I also understand to a degree these guys, football and basketball more so, but these guys are getting paid a lot of money now. Baseball players are getting a little bit, but some are still paying to go to school. I think you got to be a little more sensitive to the baseball guys in terms of throwing them under the bus like they have. But and apart from that, I mean, look at the last couple of innings of the last game, and Terry Rooney, goes out to the mound in the 8th inning to visit Brendan Sweeney. Right after he had struck out Hensler to get the second out of the inning. And I mean, it was a 1-2 count, struck dude out on 4 pitches, goes out, talks to him for some reason. Sorrell comes up, ball, 3-0 count. And then all of a sudden he's behind and then gives up a double. And then in the 9th inning, Mainieri comes out for, I don't know what reason, to talk to Caleb Jones, who had just struck out Hensler on a 2-2 count, ball to Sorrell, 4 straight balls to Harrison, throw another ball to Kent, who eventually homers. Like, what are these guys talking about when they go to the mound? I mean, like there's a, like you said, there's a disconnect there, and I don't know why it's become so bad so quick, but it certainly has. I just 2-13 in the league. I didn't think, and I was listening to what you were saying, before I came on, and I'm like you, like I didn't think that this team would be incredible. My preseason projection, I had them below 500 in the league. I thought they would finish somewhere between that 9, 10, 11, 12 mark in the SEC in terms of SEC standing. This so I didn't have them projected to be world beaters. I didn't have them finishing top half of the league, but I wasn't expecting this. This team is better than what this is, and I will die on that hill.
Well, I'm the same way, John. I mean, look, man. I don't think anybody would disagree when you watch the rest of the league play and you see the best teams in the conference, that South Carolina, from a talent standpoint, doesn't necessarily fit the mold. Okay, I get that, and I'm quite frankly, if you poll the players themselves, I mean they're not stupid. Like they would probably say the same thing. Yeah, man, these guys are loaded, or that team's loaded, or whatever. We don't have this, or we don't have that. Okay, so that could be true, and I believe that it is true. But I'm with you. They ain't this bad. And I'm kind of tired of hearing this narrative that they just need this entire new roster of talent. They have enough talent to be much better than this. And I in baseball, you know, John, as you know, like you're going to have a midweek where you got to scrape by teams like the Citadel, who they host this week. And you'll lose some strange ball game. That happens. I know that happens. You'll beat teams that you're not supposed to beat. Oh, Carolina hadn't really done that this year. But I get it. But one of the signatures of this program, and I've seen it with more talented teams, I've seen it with similarly talented teams and less talented teams, is they find a way in the moment, and more times than not. Okay, it's not going to be 100%, never is. But more times than not, they find a way. And this team is finding a way, all right, to lose. And that is not a signature of South Carolina baseball. Never has been. And you can go back 5 decades. You know, they find a way to win. Might get beat, but they find a way to win. And so when I see that, and I see guys who I feel like you can't stick a pin in their rear end in clutch, crucial moments, defensively, on the mound, at the plate, as a guy who once did this, I come back to one thing. There's something that is not connecting with the dudes that are judging you. I'm not talking about the fans.
Well, they're being outscored 40 runs over the final 3 innings from the 7th inning on.
It's a huge
outscored
problem.
by 40 runs. I think it was 57-17 that they're being outscored over the final 3 or from the 7th inning on. So there's been a couple of 10th innings out there. From the 7th inning on, they've been outscored. I think it's 57-17. I remember it being right at 40. And that's crazy to me. And that speaks to your point that, you know, here at the end of games, they're not performing. They're not finding a way. And, you know, it's just, it's mind-boggling to me that's been, you know, such a big problem, because you've got an old roster for the most part. Like KJ Scobie and Bo Hollins, you know, they're freshmen, but the rest of these guys have been around college baseball for a long time. You don't usually see old guys, you know, withering like they have in at times. And, you know, I think that I just don't think that there's any confidence there with this group right now, and really for a while. And, you know, these things don't directly correlate, but, you know, we talked for so long in the men's basketball season at the start of conference play, you know, just how close they were so many times, just one possession, just, you know, don't turn the ball over here, don't do that there. And, you know, the record looks completely different, but at the end of the day, you just keep losing. And then you just keep losing and losing and losing and losing, and you can't turn it. You can't figure out a way. And, you know, that feels like what this baseball team has been. You know, they've been finding different ways to lose every time. And, you know, you feel like if you just break through with a win here or there, like you'd figure it out. And, you know, it didn't happen for men's basketball, and it's not happening now for this baseball team. You know, they keep finding different ways to lose. And, you know, that spirals on you, and that can take over you. And that's what happened with basketball, and that's what feels like is what's happening now.
You know, I've mentioned for the last couple of weeks, or last few weeks, John, the and we've talked about it here on the program, the consistent movement with this program, the order always changing around, not knowing where guys are going to hit or where guys are going to play. We've seen it with the staff. I mean, I'll again, maybe there's probably something I don't know, which is fine, but I was a little unsure of what Jarvis Evans did to not start this past weekend. I don't know. I know he had one bad start, but so that's it. So one bad start pulls you out of there, and I mean, I've watched Matthew Becker, who, I said before the season I thought this pitching staff would kind of go as he goes, and he's been asked to do this, and then he's been pulled out of that role and asked to do this, and pulled out of this role. And I'm not saying it's players that don't need to accept some blame, like they have to go out there and play and perform. Like players have to perform in order to be rewarded. Like that is crystal clear. But also, like I'm just being honest. Like I watch a lot of these guys, and I feel like they're scared to death to make a mistake. And I don't know how you can play a game if you're scared to death to make a mistake, or I don't know how you can play consistently if you don't know if you're even A, going to be in the lineup, and B, where you're going to be in it when you show up to the yard. John, could you elaborate on any of that? Do you think I'm way off base with any of those statements?
No, I think you're right on that too. And, you see it in the way players play, hitters hit, pitchers pitch. I mean, they're very much scared to make a mistake. And, if you do get in there, you're worried about if it's going to be the last time. I mean, Ryan Bakes was in there on Friday. He was a catcher on Friday. And, I was reading I was listening to Paul Maneri speak after that game, and he was asked a question about the pitcher, and he started talking about how bad the catching was, and said the ball was at the screen all night. I'm like, this poor kid, Ryan Bakes, can't get any games out there. You put him out there. There's 2 wild pitches over the entire game. And, he's getting called out for the ball being at the backstop all night, when the night before there were 5 wild pitches, and the catcher couldn't even catch a pitch out, and drops a pitch out, and there's not a word said. And so, I mean, it's clear to me that, Maneri just doesn't have, things just aren't in a good place over there. And you don't know whether you're going to be in the lineup or not. You don't know whether you're playing or not. At some point it's like, okay, if I'm on the bench, I'm getting an opportunity to go out there and show what I can do. Right. And like, you take that opportunity and relish it and feel like I can play myself into this lineup. But at some point you've been in and out of the lineup so much, you don't have that. You can't see that anymore. You can't see that. Oh, if I get a couple of hits, I'll stay in there, because no matter what you do, you're coming out. And as it's just a hard way to. It's a hard way to be as a player. It's a hard team to play on when it's like that. And even your best guys are moving all around in the lineup. I mean, Nathan Hall was motoring right along when he was batting leadoff, and then they take him out of the leadoff spot for a couple of games, and now he's struggling. I mean, he's not been awful, but he's not performing near what he was, after they've moved him around and jockeyed him around some. So I don't know. It's just nothing's gone right over there. I remember we used to all talk about how Ray Tanner knew which buttons to push when he was in the dugout and always made the right move. And, this feels the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to say, and I also want to make sure that I'm towing the line and being careful about things, because again, John, as a college head coach, I've never won one game, so I don't like necessarily coming over I'm talking about me. I don't like necessarily coming over the back and questioning every single decision, but I'm trying to put turn my you try to turn it on as a player and think about how you perform. What makes guys tick, what gets them going, and those type of things. And one thing you just said a moment ago, I think is really interesting when you contrast it with this. And your point was, okay, if I go in there and perform, I don't know that that's going to necessarily reward me for tomorrow. I feel like that's with some of the guys, John, not necessarily all of them. And let me give you an example on this. Okay. Outside of, I know there was a game this year where they took Kazmar out of a game, so he made a mistake at short, right? Wasn't that maybe a few weeks ago, right?
Arkansas.
It was okay. So the Arkansas, yeah, he makes a mistake. He boots a ball, and he wasn't playing well at short at that point in time, and no doubt they pull him out of the game. But really, besides that moment, the guy who's consistently been in the lineup, besides the Petries and the Halls of the world, and we know about the corner guys. Besides them, Henry Kazmar's been in the lineup all season long, right? He's been, even when he's messed up, they might yank him for a game, but then they put him back in there, and they've given him every opportunity. And if you go look at the stats, he's the best hitter in league play, batting average wise, because he's consistently been given an opportunity. I'm not so sure that there's a bunch of other players on this team that could stand up and say, well, we were kind of in the same boat. We weren't consistently performing, but we haven't consistently been given these opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And, Jordan Carrion was not really even in the conversation at the start of the year. And Maneri talked about how he wasn't sure that Jordan was going to be on the roster. And, he's been one of the team's best players. I mean, he's hitting the 3-hole a couple of times now. I don't have the stats right in front of me, but I think he's right behind Henry Kazmar in SEC batting average.
He is.
And, it took him a while to get noticed, even though he was by far, in my opinion, the best infielder on the team during the preseason coming into this thing. But, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think it's really frustrating to me for those players out there too, that they're having to deal with the challenges. I mean, it's hard enough to go out there and play when you don't know what's going on, where you're going to be if you're getting an opportunity, the constant movement in and out of the lineup, that makes it so much more difficult. And I tweeted on Friday night or Saturday night. I mean, I just feel bad for these guys because I do.
Yeah, I feel awful for him. Look, the lineup stuff, we can always stay on that road. I mean, it's, again, I don't necessarily agree with a lot of what I've seen and how it's been executed, but I don't know. I mean, as rough as the road has been from time to time, and the lack of performance and the inopportune double plays that they've grounded into, and all these crazy things that have happened. I don't know that any of that supersedes what in the world is going on with this pitching staff in league play. They don't have a starter outside of SQ, who's only started 2 games because he got banged up. They don't have a starter with an ERA under 8, John. I mean, come on, man. Like, look, dude, you've scouted all these guys. I mean, I know you have to report on them, but you've scouted them. I mean, you watched them play in other uniforms. You watched them play when they were, coming up through the high school ranks and playing summer ball and travel ball and stuff like that. They're here because they're good players. I'm not saying that they're all the best players in the SEC, but they're not bad players. And I look at the numbers, and I've seen some of them perform already in this uniform multiple times over the last few years. And I look at this, and I'm sitting here trying to figure out, how in the world are they getting worse? Like, I know that the turnover with a number of pitching coaches, like 4 and 5 years or 4 and 6 years or whatever it is, like, that's going to make an impact on any program. South Carolina is not immune to that. Okay. So I get it, and I understand it, and I'll give some grace to that. And I think we all should. But at the same time, like, they just don't execute. I mean, they put 33 guys on again this weekend in 3 games in College Station via the walk or the HBP, and it directly correlates to the scoreboard. And I can't figure out why this is. I don't know. Do you know? Does anybody know? Is there anything that could possibly added to this conversation as to why there's not a starter with an ERA under 8 in league play?
No. And as you said, these guys are much better than what they're showing. And, I mean, you didn't use Tyler Pitzer all weekend, right? Like, he's one of your best guys. You didn't use Brandon Stone all weekend, right? Like, he's one of your best guys. You had Parker Marlott available on Saturday, and he's one of your best guys. Like, and these guys had offers everywhere. You know, I mean, these guys could have gone to North Carolina and Vanderbilt and wherever else. Um, I I don't get it, and I know Eli Jerzenbeck got hurt, and I know Eddie Copper's hurt right now. That's two injuries, and one was your Friday night guy. But I mean, they've been relatively healthy in general. I know SQ was down for a few couple of weeks, but or I guess 3 weeks. But they've been relatively healthy when you consider a pitching staff. I mean, I remember back in 22 when you know you went into the fall knowing that you didn't have much from a pitching standpoint. You were down a couple of arms, right? And that staff lost Julian Bosnick for the year before the season started.
Yeah.
The opening weekend rotation was Will Sanders and James Hicks and Josiah Seitler. That was the opening weekend rotation. By the end of week 2, James Hicks and Josiah Seitler were out for the year. So you lost 3 of your top 4 starting pitchers. And, South Carolina still had a staff ERA almost 3 runs better, 2.5, getting close to 3 runs better in SEC play than what it has right now. They had 2 bullpen pitchers that year. They had a freshman, Matthew Becker, and they had a redshirt freshman, Cade Austin. Those were the only 2 reliable bullpen arms they had. Noah Hall went out there and pitched his nuts off for the entire year. I can't sit here and say that this year's pitching staff, which by the way, when you look at this roster, they had triple at least the amount of money in NIL this year to spend as they had last year. At least triple. That super regional team, about 10 times more than what they have right now. Or what they had 2 years ago. Like, I know NIL dollars have gone up, so that price of inflation adjusted. There's still much more money in this program this year with this roster. There's no excuse for this pitching staff to be putting up the results that they have been. And some of you just have to go out and throw strikes. Like, I don't care what Terry Rooney said to Caleb Jones. Like, you can't go out and throw 10 balls in a row in the 9th inning. And Jake McCoy can't walk the first and hit 4 guys in the first inning. Like, there's certainly some player accountability that needs to be had in this, but when you look up and down and see how many guys are performing as well as they did last year or performing up to expectations, it's just not there. It's just not there. Jackson Susie, Brendan Sweeney, and Brandon Stone were all top 10 JUCO pitchers in the country. Like, they should be performing better than they are. I'm at a loss as to why this staff has a ERA of 8.7, 8.6 in SEC play. Mm-hmm. That's Florida's close. Florida's had a ton of injuries. They're close. They're a little bit better than South Carolina. They're 8-something. Missouri shouldn't even count. They're 12-something. But there's no other team, if I'm remembering correctly, that's above a 6.5. Like, it's 14th place in the SEC is 2 runs better a game in ERA than South Carolina. And that's just inexcusable with the amount of arms that they brought in and the amount of talent that's on the roster. Again, not even top half of the SEC. I'll even say not top half of the SEC talent on the pitching staff, but better than 8.7 ERA a game, 8.6 ERA, whatever it is.
Well, a lot of you mentioned the struggles by Jake, and he's throwing strikes and stuff like that. I guess Caleb Jones the other day. Well, there's no question, and these guys hold themselves accountable too. But I'm just trying to. The psychologist is coming out of me because I know everything about that, right? Being a psychologist, not really. I'm kidding. I just see that as a moment. I see a lot of these as moments where it's like, okay, don't screw this up, as opposed to I'm going to go shut your rear ends down and get my guys back to the plate. Like, I just think it's just a total mentality. And you only get into that mentality if, in my opinion, you only develop that sort of mentality as an individual or as a group if you are scared of something. It's okay to be scared a little bit. Like, you gotta, it's not like coaches can just let you run rampant and do whatever you want to do. Like, no, there's got to be some accountability. Like, if you don't perform, you don't play. That is certainly something that has to be in place, or you're going to suck. But you can't go to the total other end of it either, where you just can't perform because you are so scared to death of what's going to happen if you don't. I don't know, John. Again, maybe I'm off. Maybe I'll get a phone call today telling me that I need to shut my mouth because I don't know what I'm talking about. But I don't think I'm off. Just based on watching him play. I feel bad for the players. As you pointed out, I think that they're better than this. I've watched some guys who haven't had a chance to really perform this year who I thought would. I mean, I remember at the beginning of last season speaking with both Monty and Mark Kingston about guys like Ryan Bakes, how excited they were about this guy and his future in the program and what he could do offensively and where he was as a catcher and how much they thought he would grow behind the plate. And this year he hadn't played a lick. That's just one example. So, we'll see what happens. They got 5 games at home, John. Maybe they can gather some things up and get going.
Well, you shouldn't be getting a phone call. I went back and listened to Paul Maneri's introductory press conference the other day, and he said, and I typed this out. He said, when things aren't going good, I'm not going to be hiding in the corner of the dugout. I'll be the lightning rod for criticism. I want credit to go to players and staff, and I'll be the lightning rod for criticism. That's okay with me. I'm a big boy and can handle it. So, Maneri's gonna have to be a big boy right now. He said it, not me. I'm not saying he needs to be a big boy. He said, I'm gonna be the big boy. I can handle it. So, when you're 2-13 in the league and have the worst pitching staff in the league, to your point earlier offensively about, guys about the batting average being respectable and slugging percentage is respectable, but your runs scored are way down. There's most of these guys are performing okay offensively, but so much has changed from last year in terms of what they're being asked to do, and batting average is way up, but and strikeouts are way down, but so are walks, and to me that's probably not a good thing that walks are down so much, because you don't have the most talented hitters. Like you want them up there and working the count. Like, to me, first of all, I like Maneri's strategy in general in terms of being more aggressive than more passive.
I agree with that.
The plate. I agree with that. I like, to his point, he said it a lot, I'd rather see you hit a double than walk to first base. I get it. Sure. I'm right there with you. But when you don't have the most talented hitters who have the propensity to hit doubles left and right, like some of the best teams in the SEC do, like, you have to take a little bit of a different approach. And the on base percentage being so low this year because they're swinging at whatever is thrown early in the count that's anywhere near the plate. It's brought about some hits, and we like those things, but I don't think that what they're doing offensively sets this particular team up best for success.
Look, I gave the numbers. Okay, at the end of the day, it's about runs scored. Mm-hmm. All right, and I'm with you. I 100% agree with Maneri knew they needed to clean up the strikeouts. He's right about that. He's never wrong about that. So did Monty Lee, and so did every other coach on that team, and so did all the players. They looked at way too many of them last year. You can't do that. Like, you have to swing the bat, but you also got to score runs. And they're not Arkansas or A&M or Tennessee, where they're just going to go out there, as you pointed out, John, and spray it all over the yard and score 10 runs a game because they have a bunch of elite hitters. They have a few hitters, maybe most, that can consistently do that. So they have to get on base. Then they got to go back to the Ray Tanner rule, which is what they were doing last year. A walk, a bloop, and a blast. And that works when you've got teams like this. You might not have the sexiest, batting average. You might your strikeout numbers might be much higher or a little higher or moderately higher than you want them to be. But are you getting on base and are the runs scoring? And last year they were on base 41% of the time. This year they're on base 37% of the time, and they're down a run and a half per game. So you tell me what's working. I mean, we could go back and forth on the batting average and strikeouts all day long. How many runs are they scoring? They ain't scoring enough. But at the same time, when you score 12 freaking runs, you should win a damn ball game. Or score 7 on a Friday night in the SEC, you should win the game. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, disconnect. It's there. I'm frustrated by it from a baseball sense. I'm looking at this going, none of this is making any sense here. They're doing things that don't make sense to a lot of people.
And to that point, like, to me, as individuals offensively, most of these guys are doing pretty well. You're getting reasonably good production from most positions. I mean, you're not getting anything from DH. You're not getting anything from catcher. Depending on who you're DHing in left field, you're not getting something from one of those two spots. But these guys are performing relatively well individually, and then that leads me back to whether it's lineup construction, whether it's the constant moving of guys in and out. It's just, but to me, if guys are performing pretty well as individuals from an offensive standpoint, it's incumbent upon the coaches to put them in best position to score runs and be successful. And that's not really happening. And, the batting average with runners in scoring position is not that bad. I don't have the number right in front of me, but when I went and looked at it yesterday after the stats were updated, there were, I think, 5 teams that had lower batting averages with runners in scoring position than South Carolina in the SEC. 5 or 6. South Carolina was right around that 10 range. So it's not like they're sitting down there at 220 and last in the SEC and in that category either. But it just doesn't add up. But what's happening on offense doesn't add up either. I will say, I'll leave with this because I gotta get out and I keep talking. But one thing is, they've really improved defensively on the infield year over year. That's 100%. I can't imagine what this pitching, what the results of this pitching staff would be this year with last year's defense. Like, I mean, last year's pitching staff, their ERA had to be a run higher because of plays not made. I'm not even talking about errors. I'm just talking about plays not made. This pitching staff's been, or this infield defense has been really good. Paul Maneri does that. That's his baby, and he deserves a lot of credit for getting these guys fielding the ball as well as they have. Their third in the SEC or third or fourth in the SEC in fielding percentage. They've been phenomenal on the infield defensively. So kudos to them for saving a few runs here and there. But yeah, it's been tough.
You're exactly right about that. He deserves a ton of credit for that. They're fielding it like a 982 clip, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, and, we'll finish the segment on a positive note like that.
Okay. All right, John.
Appreciate you, Jamie.
Thanks, buddy. See you soon.